All right, everybody, stand for the reading of the word with me. We stand as we read our teaching text tonight to show reverence for God's word. We're going to be in Matthew chapter 5, verses 10 through 16. And when I finish reading it, I want to try something. We tried this a few weeks ago. I'm going to say, "This is the word of the Lord," and then you say, "Praise be to God." So let's pretend I'm going to say, "This is the word of the Lord." Okay. This is the teaching text for tonight. "Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. You are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." This is the word of the Lord. Yeah, awesome. But before we sit down, I'm going to do an exercise with you. Everybody, turn to the person next to you. Make sure you see their face. Turn to the other person next to you. Make sure you're comfortable with them. Because if there is a space between you two, I'm going to ask that you sit right next to the person next to you, and we're going to close in so we can give space for everybody who does not have a chair tonight. So close the space. Don't be greedy. Some of us are like, I need 3 chairs for my Bible and then to put my feet up. Close in. And then if you don't have a chair, I invite you to come have a seat. Let's have a seat. It's good to be together tonight. Don't you agree? Yeah. So good. When I say the phrase, beautiful, that's beautiful, what comes to mind for you? Oh, okay. She has to say that. I'm her property. Anyway, she is my wife. Besides my wife saying me, when I say beautiful, what comes to mind? The Bible. Anyone else? The ocean. Yeah, the ocean's beautiful. What else? Jesus. It's good. What else? Sunsets, Ireland. There we go. We're warming up. We're like, oh, yeah. God's creation. Yeah, giraffes. That's good. Onion? So the universe. So good. When we think of beautiful, we think of great things. We think of good things. We think of maybe grand things. We think of sunsets, Ireland, people we love. And often, these are good phrases that fit into the idea of what's beautiful. And throughout most of history, beautiful, as it's been understood, has been understood as describing what is most good. Goodest, if you have bad grammar. We may think visually somebody being attractive or somebody being good looking, but for most of history, the idea of beautiful is closer to what you have described. Things that are beyond words, things that are hard to describe, things that you could say, that is the most good thing. I don't really know what goodness is, but that's it. And somebody said Jesus, and I would concur with you that I agree. I believe Jesus, and I'm convinced, is the most beautiful person, the definition of what is goodness. And this is not a new idea. I did not come up with this idea. And if anything, this has been an idea that has circulated for centuries and centuries since Jesus was on the earth. And there was one novelist in the 1800s. We have a photo of him, and I think I'm slowly turning into this, but his name was Fyodor Dostoevsky, and he was a Russian novelist in the 1800s. And he was known for writing these long, exhaustive novels really exploring themes of suffering and who is God and what is goodness. And writing a letter to his niece about the next book he would write, he said this: there was only one positively beautiful person in the world, Christ. And the phenomenon of this limitlessly, infinitely beautiful person is an infinite miracle in itself. What Dostoevsky went on to do was write a book with this premise. And the specific premise is, if Jesus walked the earth at his time in the 1800s, but the idea still stands, if Jesus walked the earth today, how would he be viewed and how would he be treated? And Dostoevsky writes this book, and the main premise of the book is the protagonist in the book represents kind of this Christ-like figure, this example of a person who, if Jesus was walking among people, how would he be viewed? And interestingly enough, the title of this book by Dostoevsky was The Idiot. That the character in this book is so kind, is around people who are affluential and successful and have influence, but he is so simple in terms that the people he's surrounding, the rich and the wealthy and the powerful, they don't understand him. And often, many times in the book, he's referred to as the idiot. And in one part of the book, somebody making fun of him says, "Is it true, Prince, that you once declared that beauty would save the world?" This is very near to the heart of Jesus. And I often think about this question: how would Jesus be treated if he was here today? How was Jesus treated when he was here on earth? Not very well. Many regarded him as a maniac or an idiot. But truthfully, who Jesus is beauty. Jesus is the epitome, the definition of goodness. And I love this quote, that beauty would save the world, because this is Jesus's idea, that his goodness would save the world. That by going to the cross and by resurrecting and by giving hope to the church, the people who follow him, we would carry this goodness with us and the world would be saved, that the world would be changed. Tonight I want to talk to you about this idea, because this is our role, you and I. As followers of Jesus, we are to mirror his life, to be obedient to what he says, and by doing those things, by people noticing and being influenced by us, the world is changed. And ultimately, people's eternal destinies are changed. The hard part is often, despite us desiring to do beautiful things, to follow Jesus, to mirror his lifestyle, not everybody agrees with us. Not everybody is on the same page. Like Dostoevsky's book, often how people would describe Jesus is the idiot. And then when they see our lives, they are confused. This prompts us to our teaching text for tonight, because Jesus understands this. In giving the Sermon on the Mount, the introduction to what it means to follow him, this 12-week series we're working through, each of his words, Jesus is very well aware that people will misunderstand his disciples. However, despite us being misunderstood, that is not an exception for us to stop being distinguished, for us to stop being different from the rest of the circumstances we're around. And so he prepares his disciples and he gives them a game plan as to what it looks like. Despite being disliked, how do we still look different? This is where we're going tonight. If you could title tonight, if you're taking notes, it's this: Beautifully Offensive Discipleship. Beautifully offensive discipleship. If you could kind of summarize what Jesus is working through in these few verses, it's beautifully offensive discipleship. Specifically, I want to begin in verse 10 because we want to ask this question and follow Jesus' train of thought. This is still what is titled the Beatitudes. And the Beatitudes is just coming from the Latin word beati. And that, in many ways, is what we've talked about last week. What Jesus says when he says blessed is congratulations, or good is the situation, or fortunate are you if. And he lists a certain category of people. And those would be people in his audience, and those would be ideas that we would pursue and desire as his followers of Jesus. And he continues in talking about persecution. So let's start in verse 10 to understand what will result in faithfulness to Jesus? Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are you when people insult you, persecute you, and falsely say all kinds of evil against you because of me. So it's interesting. Jesus outlines that persecution, someone being attacked for what they believe in, is larger than simply threat of death or violence. It can actually be in words and cultural and relational shunning and shaming. Rejoice and be glad, because great is your reward in heaven. For in the same way they persecuted the prophets who were before you. It's no secret that people are not fans of Christianity. Have you noticed this? Yeah. It takes like 2 seconds once you follow Jesus. Like, oh, people don't like this. People don't like what I'm doing. It's no secret. And long before there was podcasters and YouTubers and debaters trying to dismantle the faith, in the very first century, there were different thinkers who were really frustrated with Christians. They really didn't understand them. They really couldn't come to terms with them. And there was one guy by the name of Celsius, not the bad energy drink Celsius, but Celsius. Okay, do not drink Celsius. Okay, I love you, and I want you to live a long time. Anyway, I was about to shout out a different energy drink, but you probably shouldn't drink them, all right? That's a different vice I have. That's my cross to carry, okay? My love for energy drinks. Anyway, there's this guy named Celsius, and he was so mad at Christians. He was so fed up with them. Here's the statue of him. He didn't have a nose, but just kidding, it fell off. But he was so fed up with them, he did the most Greek and Roman thing you could do. He wrote a really long argument against them. So he writes this pretty much explanation as why Christians don't make sense. And Christians in the first century, a part of their culture, were very confusing to a Roman. Remember, the three things that influence the New Testament that we read is Jewish culture, Roman society, and the Greek language, all right? So you're in Rome, and you're hanging out in Rome, and you're a Christian, and there are certain things Romans did. Romans expected everyone be participating on their violence, participating in their conquest. Christians opted out of that often. Christians were actually seen as atheists because they didn't believe in multiple gods, but one, which is very funny. They valued the poor, the women, and the children. Celsius writes, and it's a really quick read. You could read it in like an hour or so. But he is so frustrated. He's like, these Christians, they keep giving attention to women and children and the poor. Who are they, right? It's so interesting. When infants were left to die in trash heaps because people didn't want them, Christians went and saved those babies and adopted them into their family. This just baffled Roman culture, and so on and so forth. And seemingly what's being done by Christians being idiotic to Celsius, he wrote this: if everyone were to adopt the Christian's attitude, moreover, there would be no rule of law. The legitimate authority would be abandoned. Earthly things would return to chaos and come into the hands of the lawless and savage barbarians. And nothing further would be heard of Christian worship or of wisdom anywhere in the world. In your case, if anyone professes your odd beliefs, he must do so in secret, or else be hounded and finally delivered for trial and condemned to death. The funniest thing about this statement to me is Celsius was kind of telling the future, because when's the last time you met a Roman? They don't exist anymore. Rome is a okay city in Italy now, right? Christians dominated Rome, overturned all of Roman influence, not overnight, but they did it without ever lifting a sword. And the big question is, how did they do this? I believe it's because Christians lived differently enough that it influenced the society they were a part of, and it became better because of their influence. And I say that, and we get kind of excited often as modern 21st century followers of Jesus in Albuquerque. We look around our city, and it doesn't take a PhD to realize there's brokenness in our city. It takes about 2 minutes driving from one side of the river to the other side of the river to realize there is brokenness, there is broken systems, there is broken people. Things are not as they should be in our city. And so when I say things like, we can have influence, we can all get stirred up and really excited, and yeah, we're going to change this place, right? And then we do that through our own means and expectations. But the danger in that often is we can come to a place where we agree, yeah, things are not as they should be. somewhat like first century Christians in Rome. Yeah, it's not right that babies are being left in trash heaps to die. Let's do something about that. But if we're not careful, we can come to a place where we remain comfortable and we don't actually have any conviction. So we don't do anything about how we feel. And so what was once conviction in our comfort becomes preferences. So we kind of sit back and we point, yeah, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad, this is bad. Someone should do something about it. So we complain on social media. We have really loud conversations in coffee shops. We may stir people to vote. We may do certain things, but still remain comfortable. And the reality is people begin to not like us because we've confused our preferences for what's actually should be conviction. Because in order for things to change, we actually need some skin in the game. We actually need some involvement in the lives of those broken people. We actually need to get into what it means to change the circumstances we're around. And often what happens is in our preferences, people dislike us. We're known more for our opinions about how things are rather than the person we follow. And so when people voice their opinions, stop being friends with us, cancel us, quote unquote, we yell, persecution! We're so persecuted! Oh my goodness! My friend, we must understand the difference between preferences and persecution. We must understand the difference. Jesus ties the implication for what persecution is. He says, blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness. Then he goes on to say, all kinds of evil against you because of me. Jesus doesn't give you a free pass to be rude to people because you feel like it and because you have certain opinions that disagree with him. But he gives qualifiers saying, no. When people dislike you, when you're shamed, when you're maybe even killed, there's a very specific reasoning behind that because of me and because of righteousness. So as we covered last week, righteousness is God's goodness, God's redemption among humanity, specifically in the individual sense, salvation, but also seeing things restored. And the second thing is because of me. And I would argue that when Jesus says because of me, that persecution resulting as direct obedience to following Jesus. So if you need to understand the difference between those things, what is preferences versus persecution, I outlined them for you. Here's a question for you. Here's a good litmus test, okay? I heard something about chemistry today, so I'm feeling kind of scientific, all right? I don't even know what a litmus test is. Anyway, just kidding, I do, barely. Am I being persecuted or are my preferences, my opinions just being challenged? Number one, do I actually understand what Jesus expects of his disciples? Have you read his words? Can you back up what it is you believe, what it is you claim you believe, what is the basis of your faith, or does it not expand beyond TikTok theology? Does it not expand beyond Instagram opinions? You have to be in the Word. You have to understand what it is and who is the person you are following. Are your motivations solely based on just other people's ideas outside of Jesus? Number two, do I take action on what I believe based on impulses or discernment? We're living in a moment where so much happens so fast. Friendships are over in 3 text messages. War is declared in seconds. Entire corporations are dismantled in a couple different posts. What we are experiencing is just high-speed interaction, and often we can feed into it by impulsively reposting things, responding to people, claiming things, backing up things, when we actually haven't really ever done our research, when we actually haven't even prayed about or thought about. And don't be the person who says, I have the gift of discernment. I don't like her, right? We all got this person. They show up to the gathering or whatever it is, group conversation. I got a discernment. Thought about it for 2 seconds. I got the gift, okay? Trust me. It's not about anything about competition because they like the person I like or anything. I just don't like them, okay? I got a discernment, all right? Before you send that text, before you agree to go to that event, before you surround yourself with those people, count the cost. There's a phrase, nothing's free. You're always trading something for something else. You're always giving time, energy, or money to something. Is it worth it? Actually consider what your actions imply. Number 3, have I given people unnecessary access to my life? We often open ourselves up to everybody's opinion, every single view, every single perspective. So when it comes to certain circumstances and situations, and we're trying to figure out what it is Jesus has called us to, we tell everybody, we tell anybody, and then we're frustrated when people don't like our responses, when people are discouraging us from being faithful to Jesus, and then we can claim persecution when the reality is you're inviting people into your life that are speaking more lies than truth. You're inviting people, you're allowing contacts in your phone to actually twist the reality of what Jesus has called you to. And so the tension that we face is genuinely, I'm convinced of this, many of us in the room are persecuted. And I'm not saying this as like a, like 26, middle class income, we have air conditioning and every modern necessity, and we're like waiting for an Uber and it's taking 30 minutes. We're like, I'm so persecuted, right? Or there's no Wi-Fi and you're out of cellular reception because you can't pay for unlimited. You're like, I'm so persecuted, right? It's like, we have many modern comforts, and I'm not referring to this like victim mentality, but what I am referring to is there are many of us in the room tonight that we have decided to follow Jesus, and we are the only person in our family doing so. Many of you, I know this, have been blacklisted and shunned by your family. You've been shut out of opportunity. You've been labeled certain things. You have been reviled in the words of Jesus because you're faithful to Jesus. Many of us are not able to have the same opportunities as other people in our field, in our career, in our study, because we have conviction from the words of Jesus, and to be obedient to him, we're not willing to compromise. I would say that's persecution. Persecution is not always this impending threat of someone holding a gun to your head. That's very real. And for most of our brothers and sisters in the world, persecution and martyrdom is actually at its height in history. But for you and I, the bigger threat and the bigger obstacle to our faith often has to be socially and culturally. I see more people bend and just collapse in their faith under the social pressure of being a follower of Jesus more than any threat of death. And the reality for you and I is Jesus does give a roadmap for, if that's you in the room tonight, if you find yourself in this place, that you are feeling yourself fold under the pressure of secularism or fold under the pressure of the circumstances of disbelief. But God's called you to a workplace. God's called you to school. God's called you to these places. We can't all just go live in the middle of the desert and start a commune. Trust me, I've tried. Just kidding. But it sounds nice. There was this, in the 3rd or 4th century, there's a group of individuals who were so fed up with the compromise of Christianity in Rome, it quickly became compromising, that they renamed themselves the Desert Fathers, and they escaped to the desert for years at a time. And one of them was like sitting on top of a tower for a long time doing nothing. I don't think we're called to go do that, all right? Jesus, it compels us to go and preach the gospel to the whole world. And that is something you have to do. You have to actually be a part of society, okay? I know you want to drop out and not be a part of it. You have to. So how do we withstand the persecution, the difficulty of following Jesus in an era when people are offended with us? Keep reading with me. First of all, I want to tell you that you are not alone, that Jesus says they persecuted the prophets before you. So I'm reminded of Paul's words in 1 Corinthians 10:13. No temptation has overtaken you except what is common to mankind. God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so that you can endure it. Often our first temptation when undergoing difficulty is we're the only person to ever have a hard time, all right? Don't be that individual. You are not. The next thing Jesus tells us is rejoice and be glad because great is your reward in heaven. He says that before the bit about the prophets being persecuted. That there's not really specifics that Jesus gives. He doesn't say like, I'll make sure you get a Model S Tesla, okay? Like I will make sure, or if that's not your vibe, we'll get you like a 1975 Bronco fully restored in heaven, okay? And you can play golf every day, all that you want. That's not what he's saying, but there is a reward, there is a promise for those persecuted. So first and primarily, God sees you. Jesus sees you. That's a comfort to rest in tonight, that if you're facing that pressure, Jesus is with you. But he gives us a roadmap of how we are to endure this. He says, you are the salt of the earth, but if the salt loses its saltiness, how can it be made salty again? It is no longer good for anything except to be thrown out and trampled underfoot. You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Historically, salt has always been used for consistent things. Nowadays, you could go to a Costco and buy as much salt as you want. All right, I don't know why you would do all the salt you would ever want, but you could buy a lot of salt pretty easily today. At the time of Jesus, it was a little bit more rare. It was a little bit more expensive. It required a lot more process, and people had less money. So salt was pretty rare. And salt primarily was used for a few things. It was used during sacrifices. It was used as a purifier. It was used as flavoring. And it was used as a preservation for meat. So there's like no refrigeration. So everyone's eating beef jerky. Anyway, and biblically, it was a sign of friendship, which is interesting. And here's an additional thing I want to add to that, okay? I have a little salt packet from our very own Sopo, okay? It's iodized, so that's good, right? Good metabolism happening in here. Anyway, here's the thing about this passage. We've seen it many times, and we are compelled to have moral influence or to be followers of Jesus in a certain way and just to go change the world. But here's the thing. Okay, let me open this because I need two hands to do it. I want to tell you, when using salt, okay, there's a little bit here on the table. No one's asking for individual grains of salt. Here's what I mean. Salt is always together, okay? It's on my finger, you can't see it. I should have brought more. Anyway, I'm not up here holding one individual grain. If you salt your food, do you go to the little salt shaker, pour it out on the table at the diner or the cafe or the restaurant, and you say, I just need one little, right? All right, now my food's good. No, if you need your sodium up, you're dumping all that on there, right? Right? You need those electrolytes, you're doing the whole thing. You're dumping all of it out. Salt as individual grains is much less effective as the collective whole. Jesus' call to this passage is not for you to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and just individually, I'm just going to change everything, right? But communally, together, we are the salt. We operate as a community, as a preservative for the rot in our society. We operate as a community to bring peace in our society. We operate as a community to change the circumstances we are in. And I wonder for how many of us, we see the words of Jesus, we're being persecuted, we're being under pressure, and we're still going into it alone. We're going as an individual grain of salt, and we're not as effective. When Jesus is actually calling you in your area of influence to actually gather in community to change the circumstances you're in. It's been said, you can go really far on your own, but you can do more with others. The more we do, it is better when we are together. And so don't take this tonight like I'm just an individual grain of salt, just changing the world one decision at a time, one Excel spreadsheet at a time. This is something we work towards together. We do this in community. See, what I love about this idea Jesus is giving is he gives two different ideas. One is salt, and salt is very experiential in the sense of you taste it, you feel it, you experience it. You have to be up close to see it, right? Hence, even me showing you tonight this salt, you can't see it. Why can't you see the salt? I have more, by the way. I have more in here, right? So tell me if you see this when I pour this out. Do you still see it? It's gone. But if you're close, if you're really here, you see it. I wish y'all could see this. This is amazing, by the way. This is life-changing. Salt is influential, and you have to be close to experience it. You have to be in proximity to it to truly feel its effect. Light is a little different. Do we all see light in the room right now? What's easier to see, a pillar of salt or a giant lighthouse? A giant lighthouse. See, the idea that Jesus is giving for light is salt is more relational, dynamic, individual. It's what we do together, but people, when relationally experiencing this community, are changed because of it. Whereas light is a display. It's bigger than salt. And here's what I want to emphasize to you tonight. Going back to this passage, Jesus says, "You are the light of the world. A town built on a hill cannot be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a bowl. Instead, they put it on its stand and it gives light to everyone in the house." So Jesus is giving two ideas. The one purpose light serves is to light up a room or provide light. Yes, that is the source. That is the purpose of light, by the way, okay? We need lights to light up spaces. It's very deep, very philosophical. It's ironic if somebody were to have a light bulb or have a candle and want to light up a space and put a bowl over it. That would make no sense. The same thing when Jesus says, "What good is salt if it is not salty?" He's kind of being ironic here and contradictory. There's no purpose for salt if it's not salty. The one purpose salt serves is for this very reason. And he compares that to if we as followers of Jesus are not having influence in the name of Jesus, and if people don't know us as followers of Jesus, what are we doing? What is the purpose to which why we do all of this? To just make ourselves feel good about dying one day? I don't think so. Jesus is calling you and I to have influence in where we are for the very specific reason. That's why we're still here. Okay, there's a reason you didn't get raptured the moment you gave your life to Jesus. Would be kind of cool and kind of crazy, right? Someone's like, "I come forward for altar call." Oh, like, yeah, they're gone, right? You stayed here. I don't know if you expected to like ascend into heaven after getting baptized or something, but you're like, get out of there. You're like, "Oh, I'm still here." Oh, okay. Because Jesus has kept you here on purpose. Scripture tells us he has numbered our days. It's kind of scary to think about, but the reality is you were intentionally here for such a time as this. So the thing about light that is different from salt is that light is experienced differently. And Jesus goes on to say that in the same way, neither do people light a lamp. Instead, they put it on a stand, and it gives light to everyone in the house. And Jesus also says, in the same way, let your light shine before others. That way they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. In a few weeks from now, we're going to hear from our very own Brendan Williams up here. It's going to be phenomenal. And he's going to be teaching on the passage of public displays of righteousness. And somebody could read this and say, "Oh, that's contradictory." But the reasoning that Jesus says, "Let your works and let other people see your good works," is not so you can boast how good you are as an individual, but that you can always direct it back to the person of Jesus. They can always give the glory back to God. And so this is a very important concept that you and I are to remain humble. And we are to be seen while being humble. And here's the final idea for tonight as we close. A light being seen by one or many is still being seen. Here's the tension. I say this phrase, you are light, you're to be seen, you're to be more visually aware of, right? People are to be more visually aware of you than salt, right? So you think, okay, gotta get the algorithm up. Got to get that Christian influencer grind going, okay? Like I need 30 million streams or 30 million views or 30 million likes on every single reel I'm posting. I'm on that, right? If that's you, good for you. That's not what Jesus is asking of every one of us in the room. A light being seen by one or many is still being seen. And Jesus is telling you to be seen. And so a few of us and many of us are called to maybe actually be seen by just one or two people. A few of us have been called to parenting, and maybe your light is shining before 1 to 2 to 3 little people right now. Maybe you have been given a relationship at work or in school, and you're not supposed to preach to the masses, but actually to the individual. And it is this tension that we often feel that exposure and viewership is equal to significance. Jesus never says that. He says, if you're seen. So if it's by one or many, you're still being seen. The perfect analogy for this is a lighthouse. Me and Andre chose super great photo. Okay, we're gonna pull it up for you. All right, let's throw this baby on the back screen real quick. Actually, can we do that? Is that possible? Is that possible at all? Yeah, yeah. Boom! Look at that thing, right? A little sunset happening. Okay, some rocks. A little long exposure make the waves soft. All right. We got no lighthouses here because Elephant Butte doesn't need one, but this is in Portland, Maine. And the beauty about a lighthouse is it's guiding each ship in the night to stay away from something. And specifically, it's guiding each ship to not crash against the rocks. A lighthouse is successful if a ship sees it and it doesn't hit the rocks. So for you and I, our goal is to be a lighthouse. It's not about how many ships see us or how many ships say, that's a cool lighthouse, but how many ships don't hit the rocks because of the light we project. And by doing this, we're not producing some good thing within ourselves. We're not trying to be the best version of ourselves, and that's the light within you, and that's your goodness. But to steal from my favorite pastor, Skip Heitzig, he gives this analogy that the moon borrows its light from the sun. And when it mirrors the sun, when it overlaps the sun in its cycle, it projects light. That's what we're to do with Jesus. So we are not conjuring up some goodness in ourselves, but we are just explaining and mirroring and putting forth the light that comes from Jesus. The goodness that he saved you from. I love that so much of tonight was focused on what were you saved from? Remember who you were. For many of us tonight, we need to come back to the place of what is it that actually Jesus saved me from, and why is he so compelling? Is it true that you said beauty would save the world? I'm convinced it will, and it's through the beauty of Jesus. Let's stand and pray. Lord, we love you. Thank you for your goodness. Thank you for your mercy. Thank you that what we are doing tonight is not hoping to figure out a secret code or figure out how to be perfect or try to guess what being good is, but you have been the example and the model of goodness. You promise us in John, when you're with your disciples, before you went to the cross, that you would send your helper. Lord, I'm reminded of Peter, who was denying you, later on experiences you resurrected, and a month later is preaching on fire about you. Lord, that's because your spirit fell. So Lord, thank you for the gift of the Spirit. Thank you for the ability that we do not have to figure this out on our own, but your helper goes before us and is within us. So Lord, tonight, I pray that we would be encouraged, that we are not navigating alone, but we are mirroring your light, and we can direct people away from destruction. That so many people's lives are just colliding against the rocks, crashing against the rocks, just destroying everything in their experience. But Lord, you compel us and help us to show others the way to you, that we don't have it figured out, but we just point to the one who does. So I pray that we would go forth from today full of your Spirit, full of courage to be the salt and light of the earth. Thank you, Lord. Amen. All right, we're going to close in a little chorus, then Matthew's going to come up here and dismiss for groups. Love you guys.